The document surfaced quietly in public records without attracting much attention at first. There were no major announcements, no carefully prepared press conference, and no public statement explaining why it had been filed. Yet within days, that legal document would become one of the most talked about developments surrounding the final weeks of Joni Lamb's life. Only a short time before her passing, the longtime Daystar Television executive signed paperwork transferring ownership of a multi-million-dollar Florida condominium into her personal, revocable trust. In doing so, the property was no longer jointly owned with her husband, Doug Weiss, raising questions that continue to fuel discussion long after her death. On the surface, attorneys and estate planners would likely describe the move as perfectly ordinary. Transferring assets into a revocable trust is a common legal strategy that allows property to pass more smoothly after death, while reducing probate complications. Thousands of people make similar decisions every year, especially after receiving a serious medical diagnosis. But context changes everything. This transfer happened against the backdrop of mounting controversy surrounding Daystar Television, reported family disagreements, questions over leadership succession, financial scrutiny, and growing concerns about Joni's deteriorating health. What may have been a routine legal step suddenly became a story that people could not stop talking about. This story extends far beyond a luxury condominium. It touches on family relationships, ministry leadership, inheritance, public trust, governance, financial stewardship, and the difficult decisions people face when they realize their time may be running short. It is a reminder that private decisions often become public conversations when they involve influential figures whose lives have been closely followed for decades. When reports of Joni Lamb's death first began circulating, many people reacted with genuine sadness. For decades, she had been one of the most recognizable personalities in Christian broadcasting. Alongside her late husband, Marcus Lamb, she helped build Daystar Television into one of the world's largest Christian television networks. Following Marcus' death, she became the public face of the ministry, carrying enormous responsibility while navigating both personal grief and organizational leadership. As tributes poured in, however, attention quickly shifted toward the circumstances surrounding her final months. Much of the public had believed she was dealing primarily with serious back problems. Television appearances and public updates frequently focused on spinal issues, mobility challenges, and ongoing physical pain. Only later did reports emerge suggesting that metastatic bone cancer had been a significant factor in her declining health. That revelation changed how many observers viewed the legal decisions she made near the end of her life. When someone battling a terminal illness begins updating estate plans, restructuring ownership of valuable assets, or modifying legal documents, those actions naturally invite attention. They may simply represent responsible planning. But when substantial wealth, blended families, organizational leadership, and public controversy are already part of the picture, even ordinary paperwork can generate extraordinary speculation. The condominium at the center of the discussion was reportedly worth approximately $2.9 million and located in Florida. Public records indicated that Joni and Doug Weiss originally acquired the property together after their marriage. For many married couples, jointly owned property represents not only financial investment, but also a symbol of shared commitment and future planning. That made the later transfer especially noteworthy. Roughly 8 weeks before her death, Joni executed a quitclaim deed transferring the ownership interest into her personal, revocable trust. From a legal standpoint, quitclaim deeds are commonly used to transfer property interests and do not automatically suggest conflict or disagreement. Estate planning attorneys often recommend such transfers because they simplify inheritance and avoid unnecessary legal complications. Yet many people ask the same question: why remove jointly owned property from that arrangement during the final weeks of life? One possible explanation is the simplest one. People facing serious illness often revisit every aspect of their estate planning. They update wills, establish trusts, assign powers of attorney, and ensure their property will be distributed according to their wishes. There may be nothing unusual about such decisions at all. However, Joni's situation was anything but ordinary. By the time this transfer occurred, Daystar Television had become the subject of growing public scrutiny. Questions about governance, executive leadership, financial transparency, Family relationships and ministry direction had already become major topics of discussion. Every significant decision made by senior leadership was being examined through the lens of those broader controversies. Doug Weiss himself was also a figure who generated divided opinions. Long before marrying Joni, he had established a national reputation as a Christian counselor specializing in marriage restoration, addiction recovery, emotional healing, and relationship counseling. Through books, conferences, television appearances, and counseling programs, he built a substantial following among Christian audiences. Supporters viewed him as someone who had helped countless families rebuild broken relationships. Critics, however, pointed to past professional disciplinary actions involving credential representations and counseling practices. While supporters argued those incidents should not define decades of ministry, the existence of public criticism meant that his relationship with Joni would inevitably receive additional scrutiny. The timing of their relationship also became a subject of debate. Marcus Lamb passed away in late 2021 after decades of leading Daystar. His death represented an enormous turning point not only for the ministry, but also for Joni personally. She suddenly found herself carrying the emotional burden of widowhood while simultaneously overseeing one of the largest Christian media organizations in the world. During this period of transition, her relationship with Doug Weiss developed. By 2023, they were married. Many viewers celebrated the marriage as a story of hope, believing Joni had found happiness again after experiencing profound loss. Others were far less enthusiastic. Reports suggested that some members of the Lamb family opposed the relationship, raising concerns involving timing, leadership implications, ministry direction, and trust. Whether those disagreements were ever fully resolved remains uncertain, but they reportedly became intertwined with larger questions regarding Daystar's future leadership. Succession is rarely simple within family-led organizations. Businesses, ministries, nonprofits, and family enterprises frequently experience tension when leadership transitions from one generation to another. Different family members often have different visions for the future, and balancing personal relationships with institutional responsibilities is never easy. Following Marcus Lamb's death, questions naturally emerged regarding who would ultimately guide Daystar into its next chapter. Reports suggested there were differing perspectives concerning governance, board oversight, executive authority, and long-term organizational direction. Against that backdrop, the condominium transfer took on added significance. Some observers interpreted it as an effort to protect assets from potential future disputes. Others believed it simply reflected careful estate planning by someone confronting advanced illness. Still others argued both explanations could be true simultaneously. After all, human decisions rarely result from a single motivation. A person can seek legal efficiency while also protecting family interests. They can simplify inheritance while attempting to reduce future conflict. These motivations are not mutually exclusive. That complexity is one reason this story continues generating discussion. Public records can establish what happened, but they rarely explain why it happened. Legal documents record actions, not intentions. Beyond family dynamics, Daystar itself had become the focus of broader financial discussions. Questions surrounding executive compensation, ministry spending, travel expenses, governance, and organizational transparency had increasingly become topics of public conversation. Critics argued that larger ministries should provide greater financial disclosure and stronger accountability structures. Supporters countered that managing an international broadcasting network involves significant operational costs and that many criticisms lacked important context. Real estate holdings also attracted attention. Public reports suggested that Joni possessed multiple valuable properties accumulated over decades of ministry success. The Florida condominium represented only one part of a much larger financial picture. Whenever significant wealth is involved, estate planning naturally becomes more important. Every transfer carries greater financial consequences, and every legal decision receives closer examination. Another factor contributing to public speculation was the issue of transparency. Religious organizations operate differently from publicly traded corporations. While these structures protect religious independence, they also mean the public often has limited visibility into internal decision-making. When information is limited, speculation often fills the gaps. That pattern is hardly unique to Daystar. Throughout history, organizations facing public controversy have discovered that unanswered questions frequently create even more questions rather than bringing closure. In this case, the absence of a detailed public explanation allowed multiple interpretations to develop. One interpretation sees nothing unusual whatsoever. From this perspective, Joni was simply putting her affairs in order while facing a terminal illness. The property transfer was responsible planning designed to ensure her estate would be administered efficiently after her death. Another interpretation emphasizes reported family disagreements. Those who hold this view believe the transfer may have reflected deeper concerns about inheritance, succession, or future disputes regarding valuable assets. A third perspective acknowledges that both explanations may have influenced the decision. Estate planning and family considerations often overlap, particularly in blended families where substantial assets and organizational leadership are involved. The truth may never be fully known because only Joni and her legal advisors understood every factor that influenced her decision. Her reported battle with metastatic bone cancer also adds an important human dimension to the story. Serious illness often changes how people think about life. Priorities shift. Relationships are reassessed. Financial plans are revisited. Legacy becomes more important than ever before. Many people facing life-threatening illness spend their remaining time organizing affairs so loved ones will face fewer burdens later. Viewed through that lens, the property transfer appears entirely understandable. Unfortunately, public figures rarely receive the privacy that ordinary families enjoy. Every legal filing, every financial document, and every personal decision becomes subject to public analysis. Behind the headlines, however, was a woman dealing with enormous physical suffering while carrying the responsibilities of leading a global ministry during one of the most difficult periods of her life. That reality deserves consideration, regardless of where someone stands on the controversies surrounding Daystar or the differing opinions about Doug Weiss. Even today, many questions remain unanswered. Was the condominium transfer simply standard estate planning? Did family relationships influence the decision? Was it intended to prevent future legal complications? Did it reflect concerns that were never made public? Or was it the result of several different motivations coming together during an extraordinarily difficult season? Public records establish the facts of the transaction. They do not establish the reasoning behind it. Perhaps that is why the story continues attracting attention. It combines universal themes that almost every family can understand. Questions about inheritance, leadership transitions, family disagreements, illness, legacy, trust, responsibility. These are deeply human issues that extend far beyond one ministry or one legal document. The transfer of a multi-million-dollar condominium ultimately became symbolic of something much larger. It represented the intersection of personal relationships, organizational leadership, financial stewardship, and end-of-life planning. It also illustrated how quickly ordinary legal decisions can become extraordinary public controversies when they involve influential figures. Whether additional information ever emerges remains uncertain. What is certain is that Joni Lamb's final months unfolded during an exceptionally challenging period marked by serious illness, ministry leadership, public scrutiny, and reported family tension. Those realities formed the backdrop against which every major decision was interpreted. For now, the legal filing remains a matter of public record, while the motivations behind it remain known only to those closest to the situation. The available evidence allows people to understand what occurred, but it does not provide definitive answers about why it occurred. And perhaps that is the central lesson of this entire story. Legal documents can reveal transactions, public records can establish timelines, and headlines can generate endless debate, but they cannot fully explain the deeply personal decisions made by someone confronting the final chapter of life. In the end, the discussion surrounding Joni Lamb's condominium transfer reflects more than a property transaction. It reflects the challenges of balancing family, faith, leadership, wealth, and legacy under intense public scrutiny. While opinions will undoubtedly continue to differ, one fact remains undeniable. Her final months were shaped by circumstances far more complex than any single document could ever capture, leaving behind a story that continues to provoke reflection, conversation, and unanswered questions.